Have you ever had that experience where you've walked into a room and it's deathly silent? Whether you have young children or teenagers, they're so engrossed in what they're doing. They're concentrating fully on the task. They can't hear you. You can call them for dinner. You can try and engage them in another activity that you know they love, but they just will not budge. And yet, when you ask them to sit at a table to study or do their homework, they can't concentrate for more than 5 seconds. They're hungry, they're thirsty, they have a headache, they need the bathroom, they're tired, it's too hard, they can't do it, it's boring. What is that all about? Well, actually, there might be a genuine reason why they can't concentrate. In today's video, we're going to look at the 4 learning styles as outlined by Dr. Neil Fleming, called Vark: visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. Now, when we consider our children at school, we might think about them sitting behind a desk and a teacher talking at them, which is known as a lecturing style of teaching. And that might have been the case in the past. But today, our teaching practices have evolved, and teachers tend to engage in different teaching styles that engage the Vark learning styles. Now, as we learned in the previous video, concentration is heavily dictated by our emotional engagement. So if we can engage our children in a task emotionally, then they are more likely to focus on it. And how can learning styles influence that? Well, if we can tap into the preferred learning style, then we can actually emotionally gear them up, because we're tapping into a way that they naturally and easily process information. So the learning styles are visual. Visual learners learn by seeing. They learn by symbols, images, pictures. So one great way in which we can facilitate that and implement that at home is if we allow them to use different coloured paper. So often we want them to use lined paper, blue and black ink, and that definitely has its place. However, for visual learners, they learn if they have brightly coloured paper, different coloured pens, if you allow them to create posters and put it up around the house. That way then you're engaging with their sight and they are able to process the information better. The next type of learner are auditory learners. They learn by listening. So with lots of audiobooks, they are a great resource in which you can help to develop concentration, because you can get information, for example, reading material, geographical knowledge, you can get them to listen to it and then they can process it in a way that suits them. Now, for some topics, it might be more challenging, for example, science and math. So how can you make that, audio? Well, one way is if you record yourself reciting, the textbook or the website, and then your child can play it back. Equally, you can encourage them to make recordings and then play it back. Another type of learner is the reading and writing. Now, reading and writing learn by reading the information and then making notes. So you can help them at home by creating flashcards. They can then put bite-sized information on the cards. You can also have post-it notes put up about the place. You can also, when watching TV, if you're watching a documentary, you can have the subtitles so that they can read them. Another type of learner, which is the 4th type, is the kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners learn by doing, and it seems the most challenging, but actually consider how a young child learns. They learn by doing, by play. So for kinesthetic learners, they learn by doing things, and it can be a challenge to think, well, actually, how can you change the static task of reading and make that into something that you do? So for example, if they're learning or reading newspaper articles, what you can do is cut out the headline, cut out the image, cut out the main body of text, and then put it up around the house. If you don't want to ruin your wallpaper, you can just put it on the floor at different areas, and then the child has to match them up. If you're looking at maths, you can ask them to go into the kitchen to look at the labels, the cost of things, and then create maths, multiplication from it, division, and that way then they're having to actively do something. And in truth, although we have these 4 learning styles, most people are a mixture of them. So if you can engage in the different learning styles, then you will be able to develop a greater amount of concentration from your child. Now, on top of the different learning styles, the learning venue, the place in which they're studying, has a great influence on their ability to concentrate. We all know that if our workspace is cluttered, it's so hard to focus. So if we can declutter the areas in which we expect our children to study, it can help to get them to concentrate on the task at hand. If you can get them to avoid studying in their bedroom, so that's a place where they sleep and rest, that's also great because they can then switch off and get that rest that's so needed for them to concentrate the next day. Another way to help to encourage your child to concentrate, which seems really weird, is to actually vary the learning space. What does that mean? Well, for example, you might get them to learn in the kitchen. You might get them to study at a kitchen table if you have that, or to stand at the side and do some work. You then might get them to go to the living room and study there. Of course, switch off all distractions, maybe unplug the TV. You then might get them to study, if it's safe, in the hallway, on the stairwell. By allowing them to study in different spaces, it actually helps them to be creative in their thinking. A school in Stockholm actually has no classrooms. It actually uses this idea of different spaces so that children can concentrate, because learning in a different environment actually encourages them to not take for granted what's going on around them. A bit like the static noise, like we learned if we have in the previous video, if we have a background noise that is repetitive, then it can actually help to clear away any distractions. But on the flip side of that is, if you become so accustomed to it, then it can actually become a distraction in and of itself if there's some deviation from it. So by allowing your child to experience new spaces in the house, they are then able to concentrate solely on the task and not get distracted by their environment. At the bottom of this video, there will be a resource sheet in the different learning styles and some helpful hints in which you can implement the learning styles at home, and also ways in which you can create a nurturing and freer environment in which your child can then concentrate fully on the task at hand.